calling the meeting to order at 6:30. Recognize a lot of public. I'm just going to, Ian, why don't you just go through people and have people introduce themselves, starting with Steve Lemke in the back.
You don't have to do it now. Steve Lemke, Don McLean,
Sarah Coffey.
Lynn King.
Charlie Bianis.
Charlie Bianis.
George Houghton.
George Houghton.
Harry Evans.
Harry Evans.
Michelle Frizzy. Sarah Tomlinson.
Sean Murphy.
Nathaniel Matheson.
Great, thank you so much. There are rules of procedure. Apparently they're on the I think they're on the clipboard that's being circulated for people's information. And since we have so many people here, I'm going to ask everybody to indulge me if you're not familiar and I need to say we need to follow rules of procedure. But they're there for your reference if you'd like, and they're also on the select board, on the town website if anybody's interested in the future. And we recommend that these rules of procedure be adopted by all the boards and commissions in town. We don't necessarily recommend that. Vermont League of Cities and Towns recommends that. So, and the select board has created a document for everybody's use. I'd like to ask if there are new additions to the agenda tonight.
I've got a couple of communications at the end.
Communications?
Yep.
Okay. And if there are any changes to the agenda order? Okay. Before we start with the approval of the minutes, I want to say that Richard Wazansky will be here. He's at a library trustees meeting. They have to act on the board, on their budget, and then he will be here for the meeting. And Veranda had an emergency family situation, and she's hoping to get here as soon as possible. So. Otherwise, we'll try to proceed as efficiently as we can. And actually, maybe since Danny's not here, we could move highway to the end again. Because...
Sure, as you wish.
Let's, is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
We'll get down to before finance, and then that way people don't have to sit through that if they don't want to. One other announcement, which is that I had some information that people might be here this evening to talk about the river corridor bylaw. And that is not on the agenda tonight. If you are, Steve Lemke has graciously and generously agreed to come and answer people's questions in a different room in the town office. So that, and if you feel that once you've had a conversation with Steve that you have some questions or you would like this to be on the town select board agenda, please get back to Peter the Wednesday before December 27th, which I think is about the 23rd, 24th, because the standing agendas, items that need to come onto the agenda, that people wish to have on the agenda, come to Peter's attention the Wednesday before the next select board meeting. We deal on an ad hoc basis with urgent items that have to be dealt with before the next select board meeting, but that's the only time that the select board would address that, and that is pretty true throughout. The 20th? Mm-hmm. So Peter, sorry, Steve Lemke has generously agreed to answer people's questions, and if people don't want to sit through the rest of this meeting, and you do are here to speak with Steve, then before we start with the regular agenda, you might want to leave the room. So I don't know if people are here for that purpose.
So if people want to go to another room and talk about the river corridor bylaw, I'm happy to do it in another room, or you can call me or do whatever you want to. Anybody want to go now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it might make sense to leave before we get going on. Unless, of course, you want to stay for the rest of the meeting. Or you're welcome to come back.
Yeah, me too. I have a quick question.
So I will say that, okay, so the first regular item on the agenda, hi Veranda. Hi. Is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 27th, 2017. I know we've all had a chance to read them. I think Peter corrected one very minor edit that there was. So, did anybody have any questions? Do I hear a motion to approve the
I'll make a
minutes?
motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
and-
second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain.
That's right. Highways moved to the before finance. So the first item of new business is our
Sign those, please.
planning commission update and forecast. Michelle, do you wanna,
What should I
I was thinking maybe Gabby, if you moved over, Michelle could sit there and then people could come to the table and. Thank you.
Where to begin? 2017, we have, well, first of all, we received, I believe, 4 new members to our commission this year. So a lot of our year has been spent getting to know each other, getting the new people caught up to the process and what's going on. Coming into this year, we were already working on the energy section and communication pieces that we have been since we finalized the last town plan. We have recently adopted our newest version. I can send this to all of you, but here's 2 copies to look at. It's a significant change to what we used to have, and I'm going to pause on that and I'm going to let Thayer speak to that in a moment. But we've also been working on communications a large part. We have been working with Hello Guilford. We've learned a lot about what's working and what's not working, especially time commitment from people. And I know that's not this current piece, but as far as what we've done, those 2 topics have taken all of our time. We are looking forward to 2018 and at a fresh point of trying to figure out where we put our next focus. So we are hoping to communicate with you guys, the Conservation Commission, the Recreation Commission, other town bodies, and figure out where it's best to put our interests based on the table that we created based on the town plan.
Great. Thayer, did you want to say something before we ask any questions?
If Thayer could speak to the energy plan, because
Sure, I did a lot of work on looking at what we had for the energy portion of the town plan, and then attending some meetings with the Vermont Energy Climate Action Network and the Wyndham Regional Commission to hear more about the Vermont Comprehensive Energy Planning work and what Wyndham Regional Commission was doing, and the Act 174 standards, so that we could look at, even if our energy portion of the town plan may not meet Act 174 standards, because we're not, I think, quite that far along the process yet, we could start setting ourselves up to getting closer or putting the things in place so that in a couple of years we probably could be at the point of meeting Act 174 standards. A lot of that includes what's in our energy plan now, our Guilford specific data in terms of energy use, energy generation, transmission data, as well as some of the locally resource maps for solar resource and wind resource as well. And that's all in the plan that Michelle handed out.
So is this now going to be
so where we are in the
Integrated,
process, just because of time of year, we chose to pause. We adopted this, was it the October meeting?
October meeting, yeah.
And knowing the holiday season and everything, we're taking this month off for Planning Commission. January is not necessarily the best month. I'm sending this out to the surrounding towns at the beginning of January. They'll know that the 3rd week of February, whatever that date is, when we're going to hold our forum. And then it'll come to you guys after that, unless we receive significant revision we need to process. But we feel pretty confident that we've addressed most needs of the town based on our forum from last year. There's done significant work helping keep us up to date. Like she said, we're not quite to Act 174 process yet. I mean, where we need to go, but we've written things in to say that we're working towards it, and we hope to in X amount of time. So it's much stronger than what we had before, and we want to get this pushed on through, hopefully sooner than later in February. Then, I mean, the goal is by May, that before things happen, fully in the summer that this is active.
Do you think you're gonna want Peter to put it up on the town website? Just the revision?
The draft?
Yeah.
Definitely. I think just pulling through the holiday season, like January 2nd, I can go in and send it to you if you'll just post it then, so that it can be fresh. But about the same time that I send the letter out to the surrounding towns, and I've already spoken to a couple. I mean, they know this is coming, and it's an exciting revision for us. I feel like it's much stronger than where we were, and a step in the right direction. So.
And also in compliance with what the select board asked at the time of the town plan being approved, which is terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I know it's been a lot of work there.
It's
And a lot
really
of
been
meetings.
interesting actually to look at
Yeah.
what the state's doing and what the state's putting down in terms of what they're expecting municipalities to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like an ongoing conversation.
Mhm.
That's why it's taken us the bulk of our year to work on this.
Yeah.
With that, and then figuring out the communications conundrum. It's been full-bodied, but we would like to wrap this up and move on to new topics for this year. So,
That's great. In addition to putting it on the website, I think probably select board members would like to, just have it and to review.
we'll
this.
send you the PDF. There's
Yeah.
2 paper copies here, one color, not
Yeah.
one that. And you'll definitely get your official one as well.
Great.
when we do it. So.
Are there any questions from select board?
Well, I'm wondering what kind of input you would like from the select board.
I think the commission as a whole, I wasn't at the last meeting. I don't, Harry, I don't necessarily want to call. You spoke to the point of trying to know where to put focus for upcoming and what's been done in the past. And the select board's helped initiate that conversation with the planning commission. I know that we have a lot that we could do. I want to say that. There's a list that's been created based on the town plan, trying to fine tune that to what's most important for the town right now and other groups working in town, so that we can put our energy in the right place. One meeting a month can only do so much, but we
Right.
definitely want to make sure that we're working cohesively. Correct? Is that?
Yeah, right. We talked quite a bit about, had discussion on communications with other organizations in town. And we tossed around different ideas, and perhaps maybe that different groups could come into a planning commission meeting if they cared to, and discuss, where they are, what they're looking at, and so forth there. So, because sometimes we don't know what different groups are doing.
Yeah, and I
It'd
would.
be good to have some good communications.
Good communications, and I want to speak to that too. I mean, just kind of on record, is that we aren't the governing body, but it's always helpful for us to know. And we do care, and we do want to know, and it's always open for anyone in town to come share with their projects. And we want to help encourage that. That's a big goal of ours, because it's hard for us to do things like this or write the town plan without knowing fully from the folks that are working on it what's going on in town.
Right, makes a lot of
So.
sense.
Does the planning commission have an opinion or comments on the current WRC draft energy plan?
It's more ambitious than I think what we're ready for. And I went to a couple of the WRC energy planning meetings and chatted with those folks. And I think we tried to do something, I don't want to say halfway, but that gets us closer to where the WRC energy plan is, but with the understanding that we don't have a dedicated Guilford Energy Committee or an energy commission, and really most of the energy planning work that we've done so far has been through this working on the town plan. So it's ambitious, and I think it's something we'd love to meet, but we're realistically probably not ready there.
Oh, I meant actually like the draft WRC plan itself. Not necessarily like the draft plan that's pending and up for comment now, like whether you guys had opinions or heard, given your research, whether you'd had any opinions about the draft that's pending and out for comment,
I read the one
down.
I haven't read the one that's out for comment now. I went to most of the meetings throughout the spring when they were developing it.
I was just wondering if there's something to bring back to the commission.
Okay, I'll take a look at it and let you know.
I think, and a lot of the parts, when you start dissecting it, it's not whether or not we would agree with it individuals or for Guilford, but it's taking into account where Guilford is and what's possible here, what's necessary here, what we can do, because there are specific things that we can't necessarily fall into line with. Maybe we can in time, but a lot of other steps need to be put in place first. So it's a balance. This is a huge step towards it, and everything that, I mean, there's, I don't want to say you're like the guru. It's like you're invested in this and you understand, and she's brought back a wealth of information to us and been instrumental in creating this.
Well, it's allowing for an understanding
Yes.
to the common folk.
And there's no
Who
reason we
doesn't
can't keep
understand?
revisiting this every couple of years.
Yeah,
It's just because our town plan comes up every 5 years, that's its own piece.
Right.
We said when the last town plan was adopted, just a couple of years, that we knew this was weak. And so we put our focus here. And we feel this is leaps and bounds above where we were. And it doesn't mean it's done, but if we can get this much in the eyes of those that it matters as something to stand on, then we can move forward and build from it as things progress in town through you guys and other. So
Yeah.
Tremendous.
I mean, the more I've been on the select board since March, the more I've learned that so many of the issues, like economic development, things like that they can't really be dealt with in a Guilford-centric way, that we're part of the whole. And certainly I look forward to delving into this, but, as you were both saying, that our capacities are just sort of our start, and the solutions are that I hope, our state will get to, are going to have more players acting together.
yeah, I mean, we are Guilford. This is Guilford. It's its thing that's been going on and revolving, and this is in respect of that and building on that. Hopefully, even within the planning commission, we tossed back and forth whether or not to include all these maps, and in the end, we chose to because we feel like the public at large should have their hands on all the information that's out there. So we did choose to adopt and put them all in here, whether or not we support, believe, there's a lot of conversation that goes on around it, but this is the information that's available to us. There has put it all in here, like she was saying with the data, like this is the best step we have right now to show what we've gathered from WRC and what we feel the visions of Guilford are at this moment, which can change.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Gabby,
Do you have
had
any stats or information about it? Because I'm just sort of curious about the Guilford website, the calendar.
On the Hello Guilford?
Yeah, like how many
So
people
that's the next
visited
one,
it. Oh,
communications.
I didn't realize that was what
Should I
communications
just
was.
stay here? Because I can talk to
Go
them.
right ahead and say.
Stay here, or
No, I would like you to stay, yeah.
For that
I think we can segue right into that. So, thank you, Thayer, and
what's that?
I just want to say thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for coming. But we are going to segue right into communications because it is one of the, it's been one of the goals of the select board, and it's since March or maybe since the last year, I can't remember, and to discuss and figure out how to address the complex issue of communications in town among the different organizations and institutions, how to drive information out to people, how to get people to pay attention, and then there are lots of questions that are legal and other things. So I did create this Guilford Communications, just a number of questions to ask, which we are not going to discuss tonight. I put them, I'll pass them out because Michelle has had them, the Planning Commission has had these, and the Select Board has had these, but if people are interested in this, there's another thing. And then just a document in case people are interested. Some of the questions around communications in Guilford, I know that the Planning Commission spent a great deal of time on this over time, and particularly at the last meeting, which I also didn't make, and I'm so sorry, so I wasn't able to make it.
Yes, I would love to speak to what the Planning Commission's done.
Yeah, and so, yeah, 1 second, okay. And then there's also the whole use of social media, and we do not have an up-to-date social media policy in town. But Verinda, you and I both went to this, planning and managing social media. So for the select board, and also Michelle, I copied you in this, I've created a Google Drive communications folder, which is shared with everybody. And these two documents are there, and this I'll pass out. I only have 6 of those. I only made 6 of those copies.
I think I have it online.
You
Yes,
both,
you
yeah, the
have it in
select
the
board has it
documents,
online.
Yeah.
So.
Google Docs.
But these are just some issues to take into consideration while everybody's involved and engrossed in the topic. And we all know there's so much stuff going on in town around this, or, so many people are thinking about it. So I think we have just a few minutes to discuss this, but I'd be happy for you to update us on what.
I don't need to share much. I think it's pretty simple. Communications is tricky. You don't know, beyond the feedback that you get, you really don't know how people get their information. And even when you think they're getting their information from certain sources, they're not. People always say they don't know. No matter how well it's advertised, it's just continual. That's what happens. We did work on building Hello Guilford. We came to the select board last month to begin that. The shortfall of something like that is it requires 100% dedication of whoever's running it. And so you need more than one person because people's lives get crazy. I mean, I would say minimum of 3 people that have their eyes on it all the time, so it's easy to funnel information. It's always pulling teeth to get information from anyone in town, no matter how much they want it shared. I can speak to that even on the Gazette. We have a calendar and we ask for it and it doesn't ever come in. So I feel like the broader the focus group can be to help figure out how to do this, the better. We have spent an enormous amount of time on it, and I don't feel it's the Planning Commission's sole job. But the reason we've spent so much time with it is that we see the dire need. So how to move forward, I'm leaning on you guys. I'm thankful to be a part of the discussion, but it's imperative for the town, and it's also really difficult. And there's so much going on in Guilford. We live in such a beautiful community. It's hard to gather it all in a timely fashion. It really means that someone needs to be checking in weekly. Like, it's not a once a month thing. There's so much that comes about at the last minute, needs to be out posted, meetings change 2 weeks prior, stuff happens. And how to get it to a place that people trust. Because people always say they don't know. No matter how long the town website's been up, the Gazette's been going, people still say it's not there. They don't know when this meeting happens.
People don't know the select board meets twice a month.
They don't know when, where, time.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
It's a big deal. They don't know when our school board meets. They don't know when we meet. It doesn't matter how much we broadcast it. People still ask. And what do we do? I don't have an answer.
Big TV screen. So my proposal to the select board and to the planning commission is, I'm sorry, did I just kick you?
Yeah, you're fine.
Is that we create a committee with representatives from the planning commission, the select board, the Gazette, Eric Jones, anybody who's interested in the community, to really examine this topic as a real focus of their attention, and then to consider what to do, and then to come back to the select board with recommendations, because we are not going to solve this problem tonight, and it's going to take more weeks and hours and hours and hours of work to even begin to come up with a proposal.
I just want to say that a lot of conversation can happen around this. I think it's really important for a group to get together and just decide and be really strong about the direction they choose to take, because it's the only way we're going to see if it's working, is to do it, put it out there, and believe in it for a year, and then come back and see. It's not a quick thing, but it's not something that can keep going back and forth. It's intense, difficult, and time consuming. So how to go about it, I don't know.
So does anybody think something different from creating a subcommittees on the select board or the planning commission? Sarah Coffey.
I just have a question about the focus for the communication, because from where I sit, there are town functions, there are town commissions that are a function of our government, but then there are also organizations in town that are doing things. So have you determined what the focus is for the
So it is partly town offices, town groups, et cetera, but it's also different organizations, nonprofits, you know.
So it is capturing all
So,
of it.
so this is, I mean, it's like, how do we expand on the Gazette in a way,
Okay.
you know?
Can I say just one piece of the Hello Guilford? I don't know if you've been there yet, Sarah.
Yeah.
That was all in the vision of trying to combine all the town organizations. The part that's failed is that people don't send it forward. You need someone seeking that information from them. Like if the person that's controlling the website always got an email that said, I have an event coming up, so they could just plug it in, it would be great. But that doesn't happen. It depends on someone knowing what's going on in town and saying, can you give me more information so I can post it? That's hard for one scene. Like there's so many things going on in Guilford. Guilford's amazing. You know, the Hello Guilford was to try to branch off with the town, like link to the town website, but show Guilford more full-bodied. And it's fallen flat. The calendar's not updated. Jethro Eaton was really gung-ho and trying to do this, but it's way more time consuming than you would imagine to try to touch base with all these different folks and get it up. And so trying to figure out a more of a funneled, simpler solution is where we are to help keep us all connected with town and, you know, every nonprofit, everything that's going on. Like, and that we used to think it needed to be static. And we have learned that there needs to be the ability for people to put something, to have a dialogue on there somehow. We need a moderator. Like it can't just be a calendar. It needs to be more of the moment, ever how that looks. So
This paper, Sarah, to answer your question, is really, those questions need to be answered before we can decide what strategies or what tools we're going to use. And those are really important questions to ask. So I guess...
I have a question too. I mean, just in terms of our organizing, I wonder whether there are any towns that have the kind of communication system that we would like to have.
We learned about Colchester and Middle something or other.
Sex.
Yeah, I think so.
Barry?
Susan Brown's or Susan. Anyway, we do know, and through that woman, sorry, I don't have this paper, the other one, the woman who gave the workshop.
Oh, yeah.
We will be able to find out how other towns have managed with this. I think her name was Sarah Monroe, right?
Right.
So I think one of the questions to ask is how have other towns managed this and where do they get funding, so that we can maybe have an intern or somebody, somebody to help do this. So there are lots and lots of questions to address in the context of this group. So
it's a living thing. It's going to need continual nourishment to make it work.
Gabby had a question for you about the number of people who
Did you have any statistics, or how many people are passing through, or how many people even participated?
Through Squares, but you can see exactly who.
Yeah.
There, you can read everyone that was logging in was involved in town. So that it wasn't reaching people that don't already know.
It wasn't reaching the audience, it was reaching
the people that were checking in.
Yeah.
So the numbers fluctuated, but it was based on, there was 3 or 4 months that it was actually being filled out and people were starting together, but it was only the people that were submitting information or checking in to see about those specific things. Like, I can say that knowing email addresses that come through it, but I definitely think it could grow, but it's going to take time. There needs to be, doesn't have to be that place, maybe it is, but there needs to be one set source that people can have faith in to go to. Instead of us saying you can go here or go there or go there. That was the initial planning commission thought. One hub, combine it all together so we're always, all commissions, everything, saying go here. The one, because it links back to the town, it links to every organization in town, gives a tidbit about them, and I think there's something really important in that to see if we can support it.
That is clearly the strategy that you all have thought about. The question is that going to meet all the needs and serve all the vision and the objectives? So if people, are people in accordance with the suggestion that we create a committee?
Sure.
Do I have any volunteers?
I would be on that
You'd
committee.
be on that committee.
I mean, I'm not very cyber savvy, but I do care about people communicating.
I'll do it. Maybe Richard might want to do it as well.
I mean,
Michelle?
I'm happy to stand in too, because I've been privy to a lot that's gone on for a few years now.
Okay, and do we think Eric Jones, I think Eric Jones would be able to contribute to this?
Could we get another planning commissioner, so
You
it's
may
not just me?
definitely,
I can
Nathaniel?
about to.
Nathaniel?
Great.
Nathaniel, you're an IT guy, right?
Yeah.
Eric?
I just have a question.
Oh, sorry, I can't call you.
You know, you talked about like a hub that would be linked to the town and linked to all these other things. But to my mind, the only stable place is the town website. Why wouldn't it be the town
So,
website?
sorry, can we save that question? And would you like to be a volunteer community person to be on the,
No, no.
okay, so that's a very good question. It's part of like, so what is the, what are the tools that we're going to use to achieve these objectives? Is it going to be a town website? Is it going to be
There are limitations
Are we
for it
gonna-
being a town website.
So it could be Facebook, it could be Front Porch Forum, it could be, a whole bunches of different things. So that is not the question that we're going to answer tonight. We're trying to get a community together and to address those sort of questions. We will put it on the town website, Eric, and if you have questions to address to the committee, send them our way.
I think his point though is should there be somebody from the town office who's on, like, part of this conversation, so it's not happening separate from.
So the website is generally pretty much the select board's website.
Is that the way it works in all towns?
I don't know.
Other towns I've lived in, that hasn't been the case, so.
And Wyndham Regional knows all the towns, that,
Yeah.
what their systems are and all these.
Now, I mean,
aspects.
I would like to speak to it, because when we initially started, we were told that that a lot of the information we wanted to share couldn't be linked back to the town website. That's why it needed to be separate, so because of liability reasons and a lot of things, the town website needed to be for the town.
So,
And so all the civic-minded people, like, this is all further conversation, it's complicated. But we did a lot of research before we chose to spend time to start this separate website, because we wanted to enunciate more than the town could do on theirs.
But over time, I mean, I've, bought advertising on various forms of this over the years. They last a year, maybe two, then they're gone. This just sounds like another one of those. And the only thing that is, persistent and existing is the town website. So just to, like you said, this isn't the place to answer that question, but
I
I'm
would
just
like,
curious.
I'm really personal, because we have spent so much time as a planning commission on this. I 100% agree. And even what we've been trying to do has come up and come down. We need something that's long-term though, and we need to create that backbone of it over years, 5-10 years. And it's the only way to do it is to have some sort of committee, someone that's governing it and helping to make it stronger. All the information we want to share in Guilford cannot go through the town website. I really feel like it was back when Katie was here and her telling us the liabilities of things that we wanted to share. And so there was a separate piece. And to be able to tie it all together seems the only way. And even with the town website, you say it's the only reliable place. I will tell you, there's so many people in town that don't even know the town website exists.
Yeah.
So what do we do to help get that in folks' hand? If we show them a new something, it's.
so we have kind of gone over
I'm
our
done.
time. But thank you all for volunteering. And if anybody in the community wants to volunteer to be on this committee, we'd appreciate hearing from you.
Because I'm not sure it was made clear, like, I think one of, at least my intentions in having the commissions come in was to thank you, and just let everybody else know how much you guys really do for the town. It's a serious time commitment, it's no joke, and at a time when people are talking more and more about time poverty, when you have full-time jobs and kids and everything else, that pulls you away. I mean, to me, that's one of the things that makes this town special, is how much time people dedicate towards their community. And so, whatever, thank you.
Yeah, right on.
Well put.
Very well put.
Thank you, Gabby. Next is another busy commission, the
Okay.
Cemetery Commission.
Okay, well, I will start and my co-commissioners can jump in. The Cemetery Commission has evolved from a commission that thinks about and decides about and administers things that happen in the cemeteries to a working group as well as an administration group. So we go out from spring to winter and go into the cemeteries while we're talking about cemetery policy, and we straighten stones and drag brush and volunteer our time to do things that are profoundly meaningful for us. In terms of our budget, we were going to ask for the same amount that we have for the last several years, which was $5,200, aiming toward routine cemetery maintenance. But also we have an issue with the repair or restoration of the fence around the Maplehurst cemetery, which is the main cemetery that people in Guilford use now if they want to be buried in one of the cemeteries that we oversee. We've prepared a document about the scope of work in all of our cemeteries, and anybody who wants to read it, I will email it to them. But I thought that was sort of beyond the scope of our 10-minute talk. The $2,500 that we're requesting for the repair of the fence, we will also go to the Vermont Old Cemeteries Association and write a grant to them to help. They give a 2-to-1 match, and the grants are pretty simple-minded to do. And so Sean and Eric and I have been talking about the fence, and I thought, Sean, did you want to talk about what some of the issues are with it?
Yeah, it's the, I don't know if people are familiar with it, but the Maplehurst is on Route 5, and it's the fence that faces the road, and it's okay, but it's in pretty bad repair because what it is granite posts the whole length of the cemetery, and then there are boards that are painted white attached to those granite posts. So we, as a commission, we got together and kind of looked at it all, and we thought probably the place to start is with a total rebuild. Take the granite posts out, maybe even make the granite posts a little tighter. So we're sort of in the process of planning the best way to do it. We haven't, that's not on the ground yet, but you know, I think it would really make the Maplehurst kind of shine as a town cemetery. It's a beautiful cemetery, so.
And because of where the cemetery is, right next to Route 5, it has a practical purpose. For the snow plowing won't throw snow then into the historic cemetery and debris, so it protects the old stones. And just a little background about the Maplehurst and Elmhurst cemeteries. One is close to Route 5 on the east side of Route 5. Then there's a pasture, and then the other old cemetery, even older, is set back there. But actually in the deeds, the old cemetery was referred to as being on the west side of the main road from Brattleboro to Greenfield. And I did go out there with the kids on Community Service Day one time, and we found the old road bed that's in the woods there. So it's really historic. People were requesting burials or burying cremation remains in some of the historic cemeteries. And this was back in the 90s. The town didn't really have a place to recommend. We were trying to limit disturbance of the historic cemeteries. And there was this field between these two old cemeteries. So I was on the cemetery commission, being a surveyor. I volunteered to research that property, see who it is, maybe the town could see who owned it, and maybe the town could buy it for a town cemetery for more modern burials. But the big surprise was when I researched it, it was owned by the town, bought for that purpose. In the 60s, there was a map and everything, but it had been forgotten. So we already owned it. So that's why this is part of the cemetery that we're focusing on now for straightening stones, fixing the fence, whatever gate posts there may be, and promoting this as the place where residents could have a choice to be buried. It's really beautiful there.
And so there's one more, sort of wobbly issue about the cemetery commission, and that's the future of the mowing. And so just in terms of our budget request, we're submitting, if the select board decides to go with the base of the level funding plus the start of fixing the fence, that's contingent on continuing the way that we have. If it changes and we have a contract for somebody else to do the mowing, then we'll renegotiate that.
Mhm.
So, I could go on all night talking about the cemetery,
amazing.
but
It actually is pretty fascinating. Whoever talks about the cemeteries.
well, wherever I go, people are really interested in mortality, and they want to hear all about our cemeteries. So,
Thank you.
and we're all getting older.
Right?
The paths of glory lead but to the grave,
So to echo Gabby's comments before, thank you all for all of this work. We really appreciate it. Michelle?
Is it possible to backtrack, because I realized that I forgot to speak to something on the planning commission piece?
Yeah.
The first.
Very quick.
Well, Harry?
We had discussions at our last meeting, it was kind of the consensus of the group that Michelle wasn't there, but the consensus of the group that we go with the previous amount of what they had in the budget the year before.
And I would like to add to that, though, I was not at that meeting. It's the first meeting I've missed in years. And it was an important one that we needed to be able to discuss this, and our level funding has been fine for this year. I don't know yet what we are going to dive into for this upcoming year, and so it's a little tricky trying to figure out if we do a single mailing, our budget would need to be more. So we're, in my opinion, which is separate from the group, because I'm not getting to talk to my commission about this, yes, the level funding would be fine as we speak of it, but if we need to do any sort of survey or mailing to the town, we might need a bit more. And
So
how to approach that.
wish I had the figure. Oh, planning commission. You
We usually have 500, correct?
no, you usually have 1,000.
1,000.
And you have $1,286 that we rolled over from unused from previous
so
years.
Fine with level
So,
funding for next year.
Yes, and one of the things we talked at maybe the last select board meeting, or no, at the budget workshop, was considering whether or not we were gonna put a cap on the amount of funds that gets rolled over to, like, say, $5,000 or something like that. So that, because you have coming up the energy thing, not just the energy thing, but a lot more work on doing the 2020 to 2025 town plan. So there's a lot more
So we
stuff
would
that
be
goes
able
on.
to print the revised town plan
Yeah.
after its adoption and things. We will technically have around 2,200 if we go with level funding, is
Right.
that correct?
You have this year, this isn't this year's,
So if we take the
That's in the
1,200 to
reserve
1,200.
fund.
that's in you have $1,300 in your reserve fund, and then you have $1,000 for this year's budget. So
So we
you
would be at 20.
have 3,200.
Oh.
Access to $3,200.
Okay.
Reserve from
Okay.
2 years.
Can I say on record without sending something to select board, we'd like to just go with level funding for this year, is that?
I've noted it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Sorry,
Well,
Sean.
I just was wondering about what Veranda brought up about the mowing. If there is a timeline to make a decision, about the mowing, the maintenance, that's sort of fallen on, partly on me, partly on other people, trying to make sure that there are people that do the work. And so, I think we'd need some time if there is going to be a change.
More than a
So it'd
month.
be a monetary change and it would be a time change to line people.
And would you need more than a month to work it out? Do you think, like by the end of middle of
Probably,
January?
yeah. That was one of the things that Miranda spoke about. In July, I wrote down all the cemeteries that I've sort of been involved with in maintenance, specifically what the maintenance required. And I didn't delve into who does it, but we do have individuals in the town of Guilford that are happy to do it. They're not covered by insurance necessarily, but it's sort of been the Guilford tradition to do it that way. It does work well. So it would be a big change if all of a sudden we were looking for a business to come in and give us a price. We'd have to do RFP, I would think. And,
Oh, excuse me, Sean, I don't mean to cut you off, but perhaps you weren't at the meeting, the cemetery commission meeting, when we spoke with Peter about, you know, the entire scope of work we gave to Peter, and the idea would be that the RFP would be submitted not by our commission, but by Peter, to find somebody to do all of the mowing, folding all of our cemeteries into that other plan. And so it won't be your problem.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to hear.
So, thank you,
But it's
everybody.
Well, one more thing about our budget, that we're set for now with the money from last year's budget, which we haven't spent yet. So through July 1st, we're okay. If things need to change before then, I feel like there's plenty of time to take care of it.
Yeah.
The next item on the agenda is the Brook Community Center update. And
Thank you. Sarah and Don, I'm passing out a copy of your proposed article to the select board members. They had seen it over the weekend, but I'm also have another copy for them.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna do this from back here, if that's okay. So I'm Sarah Coffey, I'm the president of the Brook Community Center, and Don is joining me, Don McLean, who's our illustrious vice president of the board. So, I've been to the select board before to give you an update. So I wanted to give you a more recent update. We've made some incredible progress. We had a wonderful apple pie social in October where we shared our progress. I'm going to give these to you because these are. Do you want to hand those?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. A cameraman and an assistant. There we go. So I brought these for the select board to see what we shared at the apple pie social, where we gave an update on our project. We are really excited about the Grange updating, rehabbing the building, and we're looking at a $1.2 million campaign to do that, to bring greater accessibility to the building, which includes ADA, an elevator, ADA bathrooms, a renovated kitchen. And we had a great turnout in October for the social, where people contributed more ideas for programs and things they wanted to see happen. So with our campaign, we are at $450,000 in pledges, so the board feels very confident that we're going to be able to get to the $1.2 million over the next 3 years. So we're moving forward with a purchase and sale of the building. We have a signed memorandum of understanding with the Brook Grange that's been approved by the state Grange to be able to sell the building to the Brook Community Center for $1,500, which is a really amazing thing with the trust that the Grange members have in us to take care and steward this building for now and for generations to come. And it will ensure that the Grange can continue to meet there, but also a number of other community groups can do their programs in that building. And so with this, we have a closing date of January 12th, 2018, which was selected for a number of reasons, but to start to be in a new fiscal year. But for 2 reasons, I wanted to remind the select board, we came, and there are new select board members since we were here last winter. One of the pieces or components that is an important part of this project is putting in a new well and a new septic system. And the only way we could do that is if we were able to have access to the neighboring lot, which is often referred to as the Anthony lot. And at the time, the select board had agreed that should the Brook Community Center purchase the Grange Hall, that the town would deed that parcel over. So I'm just reconfirming that, I hope, today. But also, we did some due diligence on that a component of that deed, or when the Anthonys gave that parcel to the town, they had said that they did not want to have any buildings or anything built on the land. So we were concerned that that a septic system could be considered a structure built on the land. So with some legal advice, and and the help of Laura Lawson Tucker, the Anthonys and the heirs to the Anthonys have signed off on giving us permission. And we just got that back, and we have an original copy that the attorney who's working with us, Sandy Shriver, will be bringing it to the town office. So those were some of the things that the town suggested that we do. So I wanted to let you know that those are lined up. So I think one of the things I wanted to ask John to speak to this. So our next steps are really important. The Grange has enjoyed tax exemption, property tax exemption from the town. So we wanted to speak to that. You're much more articulate on this, so do you want to take it from here?
Okay.
And that's what's been distributed around. So the timing of the purchase and sale is very much so that we can purchase the building in time to get on the town warning, so that we can also. We're hoping that the town will approve this. It'll be before a vote, for the voters of Guilford. But it's a nonprofit organization that'll be a community and civic center, so it'll be functioning in many of the same capacities and probably even more broadly than what the Grange currently does. So Dawn is really good at this part of the stuff. So I'm going to ask him.
It's been traditional over who knows how many years for the town's people to vote at town meeting to exempt certain nonprofit properties from having to pay property taxes. By statute, churches are not part of this system because they have their own special category in terms of municipalities and taxes. So this applies to the fire department. In fact, I was interested to go back to 2014 and town meeting and discovered that there was a whole series of articles, one for the volunteer fire department, one for the recreation club, one for the fair association, one for the Grange, all of which are worded the same, and they exempt from taxation for 5 years those organizations. Since we have a change of ownership, obviously we need to update that exemption and to ask the select board to put this item for us on the town meeting warning so that the voters in March can be asked to vote on this exemption. Also, because of what Sarah was just saying, we will be combining two existing parcels into one ownership. The former Anthony lot, which is currently owned by the town, and the Broadbrook Grange lot, which will be combined into one ownership of Broadbrook Community Center, Inc. And in support of hoping that you will simply put this on the warning for us, because I think it's pretty much a formality from my point of view. We have two parcels which are currently not paying taxes, a town parcel and the Grange parcel. So in that important sense, from the point of view of a townsperson looking at this, it won't be as if a currently taxable property is suddenly being asked to be exempt. And in a sense also it's continuing the long tradition of the Grange having this tax exemption. So we would request that that the select board put this article on the warning for us, and you have seen the Peter shared the copy with you of the sample that we wrote up the draft. which is based in wording on I thought the ideal thing would be to go back to the 2014 town meeting warning and copy that language, which apparently worked then, and which cites the Vermont statute. The one addition that we made was we identified the two parcels so that anyone looking at this will see what parcels are involved, because, as I said, this is a slightly different configuration. So the proposed article is, shall the town vote to exempt from taxation for 5 years from 4/1/2017 to 3/31/2022 the real estate owned by the Brook Community Center, Inc., parcels 228 and 242.2, 32 VSA, subsection 3840. And that's
Thank
our
you.
request. Thank you very much.
So, Michelle?
This is not about the tax exemption, but I would like some clarity on the combination of the two lots, the Anthony lot. I'm in full support of the septic system and everything. As curator of the Historical Society Museum, I have concern about the old foundation on the corner that falls within that Anthony parcel. How would that be cared for in the transition of all of this? Because I know, like, not just myself, but others in towns have dreams of cleaning that up, bringing it back, marking it with the history of the tavern and the store. Like, there were so many properties that were, this was the center, the thriving point of Guilford way back. And that corner lot,
The corner that's closest to the library?
it's right there by the library. You can see the
So,
foundation.
can I just say
Will
that
it-
I think this is a question to address to Brook Community Center,
So will it,
and not
that's all
through the
I'm
select board.
asking, will it now go to
Because the
the?
issue at hand tonight is, is the select board going to ask BBCC to go through the petitioning process?
I
and
understand
so-
that, but I also, it was the
We're
first
happy-
time I was
I'm happy
hearing
to have
it was
that raised
combined.
as
We'd be
a-
happy to answer that if you want to.
I'm just thinking that there are a lot of people here and this is a busy agenda, and that is not an agenda item, so, sorry, Michelle. And I'm sorry to be so, I mean, I really do want to stick to the procedures tonight. We have a lot of reasons to keep going and to keep on time, and we are now over time for a couple of different things. So hopefully you can get that question answered, and
I
and
just
if
wanted
it
to be
is,
clear that it's now the Granges.
yes,
that
it's,
It's not gonna be the Granges, it's gonna be
A BBCC, yeah,
Yes.
I mean, that's all I'm
Yeah.
asking, because it's been dealing with the town.
Yeah.
And that's all I wanted to know.
yes. So the question to the select board relates to the necessity of going through the petitioning process, and I will remind the select board that we had this exact issue 2 weeks ago when HCRS, through some internal issues, forgot to submit their request for funding last year, and they asked to not have to petition this year, and the select board said, that's the process, we need to go through it, they need to go through, so they need to petition for 3 more years. And I'm going to now open it to discussion of the select board.
I'm not understanding the petition process. It's the same petition, but
It's the same.
they're just asking to be
To
put
get
on the
onto the
town
warrant.
warning.
Yes, it's, they don't need
To
to,
bypass getting signatures.
you don't need to do it for 3 years like the
Like the-
community, the service
The
agencies.
organizations.
But you would have to, but if we do follow precedent and procedure, they would have to petition to get this on the warrant.
With how many
An
names?
article. 1% of the voters.
1% or 5%?
5%.
5% of the voters.
400 people.
Is that a similar process, though, asking for tax? Just for my clarification in terms of consistency, like an item that's, HCRS is asking for funds versus, like, does the other organizations that have these property tax exemptions, they have to, I don't think they have had to collect petitions to be put on that town warning.
My impression from the fact that generally the current policy is that when an article is by petition, in brackets at the beginning of the article, it says by petition. That's what's been done recently. These articles in 2014 do not say that. And so my guess, without knowing, and we can research this, is that these organizations' requests were put directly onto the warning by the select board and did not require a petition process.
I'll just say, we did give them permission last year, but it was a different select board, and so maybe
We did
it
give
would be.
Who? Permission.
The BBCC, we just opted not to do it because they didn't have the property. So I would suggest maybe going back and understanding why, do
Right,
we have a
looking at-
recollection of
Yeah.
why we did that in the past?
I think we should,
Although it's a different select board and doesn't mean it needs to be the same way this year, but
but.
No, I'd
but-
I'd like to do that, but I also feel this is a very different request than the one we dealt with.
It
where
is- it is a
select
different
board-
request.
So procedurally, you're correct. If that's, you have to go through that process. That is the process before we'll have to vote on it, but.
So I don't know what the process
Yeah.
is, if there has been a process for getting articles, maybe it's random. Maybe sometimes you say, yes, the select board says, yes, you can get on the warrant, and maybe sometimes the select board says, no, you need a petition. So I think we need to understand the history here before we can actually figure that out, and I would ask Peter to research with Katie and with some prior years of.
Would that be a state regulation that governs how items get on the
I don't
town
know.
warning?
I don't know.
We need to find that out.
Yeah.
And what is the regulation?
I don't know the answer to
I don't want to
that.
get too involved in your process, but I think this is probably select board policy, one way or the other. I believe certainly the policy on the social service organizations is a policy that has been set by the select board. The business about if you don't apply, then you kind of fall off and have to start over.
Yeah.
So it's one interesting point that I think is good to keep in mind is that the petition, should there be a petition, is a petition to the select board. That's what it is.
To put the warrant, to put the article on the
We would be
warrant.
petitioning you, should we have to go through the process, we would be petitioning you to put the article on.
So
it's,
I apologize for not having the adequate
that's
background
okay.
on this.
We
We
decided
need to do
come
some due
early
diligence.
enough so that you would have time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's good.
I mean, would the existing branch have had to petition?
Not this year because it's a 5-year exemption.
So-
It goes through 2019.
I don't think.
So it doesn't have to do with the content, you could just transfer that status to another nonprofit entity.
I don't think so. And I think that this is
Not what the
also,
vote
I think this
was.
is going to get a little more complicated because we have many more nonprofits in town than the 4 that are listed currently exempt. I think we need to be careful about the process and thinking about the implications for the future as well.
Inconsistent.
And consistent.
Whatever. Don, in your understanding, after, 2014, 5 years after 2019, would there have to be a signature petition put forth for another 5 years? Is that historically the way that has been done?
I can only go anecdotally and say that I've been in town 50 years. I don't remember a nonprofit having to go through a petition process for this purpose.
Okay.
It seems as though whenever it comes up every 5 years, it's been kind of pro forma.
Okay, thank you. I
But once again,
thought that's what you said.
you can research it and think about it. I think
Yep.
that's generally been the case.
That's been my impression too, since I've often been sitting next to Don.
Have your decision, however it is.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
So I'm
Thank you.
sorry that we're not more prepared for
that's
this,
fine.
but
It's okay, just so for our timeline, if we were to have to gather signatures, when is the date? Because isn't it needed for
It's
January
January,
20-something, like?
somewhere
so-
around the 15th or 20th probably, for a warning
That
article, special
would
article,
Be January the 17th.
17th.
So.
And how many signatures,
400.
excuse me, Sarah? How many
No,
signatures?
5%, so roughly 80 signatures.
Yeah.
And so just for our timeline, again, just because it is coming up and it's the holidays, just what would your timeline be, just to get back to us about the decision? Would it have to wait till the next select board meeting, or is it something that we hear
if
from?
the answer
Peter?
is that you don't need to petition, we still have to have a vote, but,
So when would you let us know?
the 28th.
So we'd have like 2 weeks to get the signatures together over the holidays.
You might want to start a petition anyway.
If there's a way to find out earlier, it would just be really helpful. If we have to get a petition, if there's a way.
You can all sign it right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know, so.
I know.
So,
what they're gonna do.
let me propose that if we find out that you're not required by law or any precedent in Guilford to petition to get this article on the warrant, then perhaps we could move that the select board would approve your just putting it on the warrant.
So do we need a vote
We need a
pending
motion for that,
the,
We need a motion to that effect.
okay, I would like to move that the select board approve the Brook Community Center's request to get on the warning without a petition, contingent, thank you, contingent on the research to explore the precedent, or say it more neatly.
I second the motion.
The precedent doesn't require them to petition.
That's right.
Warrant statute, it's not legally required. I'm not sure it's precedence.
I
Okay,
think we said
statute.
precedent and state law.
Okay. Well,
So-
can you straighten that out, please? I seem to be incapable.
No, you did great.
I think you did a wonderful job.
You seconded, Richard?
I did.
Is there any more discussion?
Could I say something?
You may.
I'm not a resident of Guilford, I'm the cameraman.
We noticed.
But I've recorded these, and I would venture something similar to Don, that my feeling is the select board can put anything it wants in the warrant. And I think your only limitation to approving this is rules that you've laid down for yourself.
So I would be
I
happy-
simply would say that from my experience of videotaping this board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
Although,
Thank you, Ian.
I will add though, as a Dillon's rules state, if it's not explicit within state law, then the select board is prohibited from doing it.
And I would simply say, from my experience, I believe select boards have a huge amount of discretion on what they can put on their warrant. So, again, no disrespect, just my observation from being behind this camera for many years.
No, I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll get in trouble because I'm not supposed to talk.
We have spent well over 10 minutes on this, and we have another 10 minutes for the, so I'd like to take a vote is everybody in favor of allowing you to avoid the petition if we determine that that is authorized with state law and precedent, Guilford Selectboard precedent?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining due to potential conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. Guilford Volunteer Fire Department
Yay.
budget presentation. You all have 10 minutes. Maybe
Whatever we call 10 minutes.
Right, I know. It's like,
And for those who haven't had it yet, if you don't mind signing in
Right.
on the sign-in sheet somewhere around here, that would be appreciated.
Let's see, where is the?
It's on the sign-in sheet is circulating
Oh,
someplace.
it's circulating, okay.
Thank you, Sheila, and everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eloquent presentation.
Who's speaking? Neil, is that you? Would you like to bring a chair up here and?
I guess I've been elected.
I actually have copies of it.
We have copies galore here.
Okay.
I'll take
Thank
one
you.
of yours.
I don't have
I have copies for all of you.
I have this one.
same?
I got one with notes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the
This
same
is
thing that
different
was,
format. I have
his is
notes.
probably printed from Excel and this is printed from Google.
See these links?
Your notes.
You made notes too?
Gordon, you got one?
Okay.
I just have some.
Neil, would you like to join us up here? I mean, I don't know who's talking. I'm inviting you because it's been you. Maybe somebody else is going to do it this year.
Well, I think we'll sort of play it by ear, so if I can make myself heard from here.
We can hear you.
All right, I'll speak up. And I guess the main thing is just to present what we have come up with as a budget, and it's the last column on the right. And I think we have gone over it the way we always do, and maybe it would be better to, if you have questions, then we'll try to provide answers.
Okay. Thank you. I want to say thank you because it's so great to get it in this format. Mine's colored because I had questions, but it's just so helpful to be able to look at the history and the income and the expenses and to be able to compare things.
Peter had something to do with that because that's what he suggested and
Last year.
so I sent him a version of the, a live version of this so that
Excellent.
you could fiddle around with it.
Thank you.
And,
So I have questions, but I wanted to ask if others have questions. Richard, you mentioned that you do.
Go ahead, Sheila.
Okay, so you know that this is, I might have asked some of these questions in the budget workshop, but since we are going through this tonight. I will ask my questions. The first item that I wanted to ask you about was the grants and bequests that you got, the $107,500. I've just noted that increased your income substantially in 2007, but fiscal year 2017, the grants and bequests. So just a note which I will refer to later on, okay? And pretty much you're looking at fiscal year 2017, 15, sorry, what is this, 15? Oh, fiscal year 17 budget, fiscal year 18 budget, and fiscal year 19 budget are pretty much, well, it's pretty much level funded from last year, $10,000 up from 17.
It's level funded,
it's level
exactly.
funded.
It's exactly
It's
level funded.
245,
245,863.
Fiscal year 18 was 245, fiscal year 19 is 245,000, which is level funded from last year, but up $10,000 from fiscal year 2017. So if you go over to the third column, they were requesting $235,000.
That's income.
I'm sorry.
That's income.
So, I'm sorry, it's up even more. It's up $11,000
I don't
from
understand what
Here's the town appropriation.
town appropriation.
the appropriation is- yeah.
230,000 in fiscal year
Uh-huh.
18 and 19, proposed in 19, and 219,000 in fiscal year 17. So up $10,000, $11,000. And that income was augmented by 107,000 unbudgeted dollars in fiscal year 2017. One of my questions was, in legal and accounting, are you anticipating a lot of stuff going on this year?
The $5,000 in legal and accounting is our guess. We have not had a real audit. Well, I don't think the fire department ever has had a real audit. We, years ago, there used to be 2 civilian auditors that were elected by the fire department. And so we would have them come and check things over. And that was, these people were just amateurs, and then after a while, nobody would volunteer or agree to serve as one of the civilian auditors for the fire department. And but to go along with it, well, so the civilian auditors, we just couldn't get any. We hired a CPA way back 10 years ago, and he would go through and he would check all our books and check everything, and he would provide a review, which is not an audit. And so for many years we did that. His ill health stopped him from doing that. And the last few years we have done with Business and Tax Services in Brattleboro, they have filled out our 990 form and sent that in, which is something that has to go to the government for every nonprofit, from every nonprofit. And so at one of our meetings recently, we decided that maybe it might be time for us to do a real audit instead of another review. And so we've just started talking about that, and I've been talking with someone who might provide that service. And so we haven't settled on what we're going to do exactly with whom. But anyway, that's where that $5,000 comes from.
That seems to make a lot of sense. Yeah, good practice. My second question is on the radio pager repair upgrade. And I want to know if this $5,000 is in addition to the subsidized
Yes.
RERP grant.
Yep.
So-
That's something that Jared could speak to.
He just he said yes. Okay. And then the truck fund, the capital outlay, is that you have like a reserve fund for buying trucks? Is that what that is?
I'm sorry, what line again?
I don't know what line it is, but
Third
it's way
from
down
the
at
bottom.
truck fund was capital outlay. It's gone from 15 to 30 to 40 to now 45.
That's money that we would like to that we had chosen to set aside to help us finance, help us purchase another piece of equipment somewhere down the line.
So those were just, I mean, otherwise I think
I do have a question.
I had
Go ahead.
one other thing. Could we, so there's a difference of, let's see, you have like this extra $107,000, which is a bequest. Is it set aside in a fund for some specific purpose? Or in other words, some years you spend less money than you are given by the town, and I don't think that those monies come back to the town. So I want to know what happens to the excess money that goes into the budget that more than adequately covers expenses. If I'm looking at there doesn't seem to be a trend here. So, and I don't know how the town understands that.
Well, what we do is to, every year I always say that this, a budget is just a guess. So we're guessing on various things. In this case, since we did get a bequest, there are some items on here that we've figured, like, well, we've set some of that money probably aside to run a sprinkler to sprinkle the building. The building is not, and we have some people in town who've been after it for a long time, and it was going to be what?
Starting at 30, so probably about 35,000 by the time we're done.
So
maybe
we've already put $3,000 into that for the sprinkler people to do the measurements and come up with figures and so on. And so that's one item that we used that bequest money for, and will. Also, we purchased our old brush truck was literally falling apart. And so we decided to buy a new one. We hoped we would find grant money to do that. Grant money was not out there. So we purchased the truck on paying for it so much a month. And when this money came in, we paid off that so that we don't have to be paying the interest on that. So that was another item that a large item. We also this is a little complicated, but it's all complicated. But our dispatching is handled by the Keene Fire Department Dispatching Service, and it's been 23,600, 24, 25, and there's a doubling there because we used to be able to pay them on the 1st of July when our money came in, and they changed when they wanted to get the money. They wanted to get the money in January. And so for a few years we were paying out of sync with them, with what they wanted. And so we paid them twice in one fiscal year. So we're now going to be back on the calendar first day rather than our fiscal year first day.
So come January, that number for this year will be filled.
It'll be back to
right 20.
We actually don't know yet what it's going to be, but it invariably goes up. So it'll probably be 25 hopefully a little bit less than the 28 that we put down here as a possible.
Yep.
So.
Richard?
I was going to ask about the 107,000, and I think that you've answered the question. Although I do have a
things that we.
I do have my question goes on to ask
we put
what.
some extra money into servicing the trucks and testing the pumps because that had not been done for a long time. We also purchased a hose testing machine that so that the hoses will blow up at the machine rather than at the fire scene. And Jared, I guess, worked out a way to, we're sharing that machine with Dummerston. And so we paid half and Dummerston paid half. So we now have that valuable piece of little, anyway, save some lives or something.
Yeah.
You know, it'll just keep it from blowing up.
Gee, that's fun. Richard, do you had a follow-on to your question?
I was wondering if you were putting any of it in reserve or for a rainy day or for a capital a specific capital improvement.
Well, we do have, we've been trying to resurface the floor of the firehouse, and we set aside some money to do that. Some kind of regular paint doesn't work very well when the trucks are so heavy and parked on it. So it's more.
The rest of that money is put in a, what do you have it in a, was it an IRA or a
CD?
Yeah. I don't know what it is in, but yes, it is.
Like some sort of interest-bearing account.
Yeah.
It is.
So, if I remember correctly, you also have a fund statement, funds on hand balance sheet for the town as well at the time when you're doing the reporting in the warrant in the morning.
Yes, I think I didn't exactly hear what you said.
So we know the funds on hand that you have and your balance.
Well, we received another bequest from Mrs. Shores maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and and that money we put in a CD. Put in a 5-year CD and earned a significant amount of money, and then tried to renew that, and the rates had gone down.
Right.
Amen.
We were getting 2%, and so anyway, we renewed. So we have another. It's about $8,400. No, it's $83,000 right now, and. See, I lost my thread here. So we set that aside as a reserve, and we came up with a policy that we would always leave a certain percentage in the CD to be earning interest, and if we needed, then we could take I think save them 25 and we can 25% and then 75% can. So that's sort of our reserve.
Got it.
Thank you. Any other questions, Gabby?
I had a quick question. There's just in the grants line request, it says 0. I mean, I would think that, running and to save people from a fire would be a compelling grant request, but is there just nothing out there to even go for? Is just money tight such that you think there's no opportunity?
I'm sorry, what
The grants, you have 0?
Can't hear.
I mean, I'm just wondering if there's no opportunity at all, and that's why it's 0. Just it's so difficult.
We're doing very well with grants, and since this was put together, we received a $3,000 grant from the Tommy Thompson Trust for AEDs for heart attack machines, and so we received a $3,000 grant. We'd sort of like to buy one more than that would, so we're going to put some of our nest egg money into that, and So we can purchase 3 of those.
So that looks like something that you usually don't budget because you don't know what you can get.
These guys do really well with grants.
Yeah.
I mean, there are plenty of grants that we apply for that we don't come through, but that one that we worked on for the upgrading the speed of the computer and the whiteboard and those things, and that was a nice addition. Anything else that was?
Dan just got us a grant for water rescue equipment and training, which is another, was it 28,000, 27,000?
Yeah, well, the whole price is in that range, but yeah, we got $14,700 from FEMA to help with that. And we've already done the first part, which was water training. We actually had 25 members of the staff go through a full training for that. And then,
I'm sorry, I was coughing, so I didn't know what you were
it's
going to say.
concerned about what's happening relative to, we had Irene here.
Oh, no, I get it.
So, and I'm down in the Green River area.
Right.
And Green River was incredible. But there is more and more concern about making sure we're trained and have the proper equipment for water rescue.
Right.
Whether it's, an ice farm pond or whether it's the Green River or Broad Brook. We've had events in Broad Brook. So we're trying to get everyone trained for that. So that's FEMA had an opportunity for grants.
That's great.
Any more questions? Thank you all for all this work
Thank
on
you.
this. And for taking the time to come and talk to us about it and answer
Appreciate
these
it.
questions.
Yeah,
Really
we're
appreciate
thrilled to
it.
have
And
the Guilford
everything that you do for
volunteers.
Guilford.
I'm starting to think as I walked up here, that we're gonna need a larger meeting room.
We're working on that too, Neil. It's going to be such a happening event. People will come. This is like the largest number of people we've had in well over a year.
I couldn't find a parking place when I got here.
So we get to old business, 25 minutes late. Bye, everybody. The Algiers Fire District out of contract.
Oh, thank you.
Did you?
Thank you.
Did you do it different one?
What do you mean?
That's it. I just wanted to put my notes up. Yeah.
Want to see our audit do his proposal? She'll get you back on the board yet?
No, you guys are doing well.
So without getting into all the various details and discussions that have already happened several times, between discussions with the select board and with the prudential committee of the LGS Fire District, there was an informal agreement that everyone wanted a formal contract between the two.
By everyone, you mean both parties?
That's correct.
Yeah.
A contract for the services that the town provides to LGS Fire District and formalize that in a contract. And so I've spent some time in drafting this and basically looking for any further input from the select board, and if you feel okay with it, then we'll present it to the Prudential Committee for their consideration and or potential edits prior to the final.
What did you say you'll submit it where?
So if you all are okay with the state of the draft agreement, then I will present it to the Prudential Committee for their consideration and or edits, and then we'll present it to both boards for final approval.
Richard, the Prudential Committee is what they call their sort of executive committee.
Yeah.
But they haven't seen this yet.
No, because
And you drew this up.
Yeah.
That's correct, and so that was shared with you.
Where did you draw this up from?
I got it from a couple of different places, from contracts I found online as well as previous contracts the town has entered into with other.
Do you think we should have a legal entity look at this from a liability standpoint, or covering
Is
the
this,
town
is-
with?
Yeah, good question. Is this something that Katie had drafted that never got acted on, or is it?
Nope.
No.
This is new. So this is a combination of pieces that the town clerk and treasurer had started putting together about 4 years ago. as well as information I found on our server. And so it's a compilation of different things.
This thing is so complicated to me. I mean, we have this great history now. We have a better understanding than I certainly did when I first joined this board. But to me, this is a big deal.
I was hoping Gabby had gone through it.
I have. My first thing is that we need to give it to it. We have a town, so
Well, she's not.
our town agent or whoever we want to hire.
It's whoever the youth select to hire.
Should, have it go past them. I would say is there a previous I had a lot of questions. So this isn't. Was there a previous contract that worded with the financial services?
It was not a specifically defined contract.
It was an understanding.
It was an
With a
understanding.
list of tasks. The Appendix A of the list of tasks was the understanding that they had with the town.
There's previously never been anything in writing defining what has been defined here.
There's been no previous contract.
That is correct.
Okay. My other question, there's some language I've had personal questions, sometimes they're billed by quarter for financial, and then we're billing them by monthly for administrative. And is that something we want to do? Because that seems to sort of be complicated.
So part of the reason for that, and that was partially through my discussion with some of the members of the Prudential Committee, because they do not foresee having a need for administrative services on a regular basis. It will be on an as-needed basis, and they wanted to be billed on a monthly basis for when those services were provided, whereas financial services are recurring. And so that was at their request, but if you are uncomfortable with that, obviously.
I'm just wondering what makes sense. Have you talked to Penny and Peter and,
I did.
Talked about invoicing processes and then talked about it with the Prudential Committee? Clearly you've talked about it with the Prudential Committee.
I also spoke with Penny and Peter about it. Pete more specifically because he's been much more involved with this specific process. And they were both fine with that.
As long as everyone's okay with doing it that way and having that many invoices, I don't care. I just thought it was complicated.
The feeling or the expectation at this point in time, and that may change, and I think it's an excellent question, but the expectation is they would need administrative services maybe once or twice a year.
Minimally.
Right, but you're attending meetings, which is monthly. So there is going to be a monthly bill. Unless they cancel their meetings. Do you know what I'm saying?
So is my attendance at their meetings, should that be billed to them? That's another question. It hasn't been up until this point. And I wasn't aware that it should have been.
No, I don't think, unless you start providing administrative services during the course of the meeting, I don't see why it would be a billable event.
Okay, so is the town's taking that cost? I'm just trying to root out who's doing what.
So-
That's it. I don't care.
No, I
don't have any,
understand what you're saying because I've
I have
been
no
to
horse in
their
the race,
meetings.
I just think we need to think through what we're actually doing and what we're billing for.
So I know that you, Gabby, and you, Veranda, and you, Peter, have been at meetings since August when they have had meetings, right?
I haven't been to all of them, but I've been to some of them, and what I see is that they're trying to strengthen their policies and procedures, and so, they're all hardworking volunteers, and the kind of raising of responsibility that they have makes it so that they need more support. And my impression, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they think that they're going to be able to handle more and more without constant input, which is why maybe, this idea was kind of custom made for where they thought they were, rather than this is something you want to apply to every group.
Does this need to be this complicated? That's
I don't.
It seems very complicated.
It's not, yeah. it's
I
not
don't
actually-
personally think it's that
I mean,
complicated.
I think it's just, it's important to have it
Does it
spelled
need
out.
indemnification? Is that necessary?
That-
I mean,
I haven't
that's
gotten that far yet.
I hear
That's
you.
right.
That was
you know, I mean,
So,
that's
but
the
to
half
get
of
to-
the, in terms of abandonment and.
Right.
To get to Gabby's
I included
question,
that just for safety's sake. If you wish to remove it, we certainly can.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, does the scope of the work, does the amount of payment that we're talking about merit this kind of process scrutiny?
So part of that's an excellent question, first of all, but this also partially comes from concern from the Prudential Committee because of the past history of embezzlement, that they want to ensure that there is some safety and security set in place for this. Should in the future, for lack of a better term, a rogue employee decide to attempt to do something and it's discovered.
No, see, I think that's great. I mean, to me, that's, you're going to hopefully solve that with this moving forward. I just want to make sure the town isn't the one now holding the bag if
Sure,
that was to
absolutely.
happen.
And I agree with Gabby's point. It may well be in the best interest of the town to have an attorney review this.
So Gabby, would you go on with your comments?
Yeah, I mean, I personally clarify things.
did you get a full answer to your question? Because I feel like you didn't yet. So,
Which
I mean,
The
the
question
dovetails
about-
onto, I would actually do an Exhibit B, like the Exhibit A, that says, here's the expectations. And then everybody knows what they are and what we think that they're gonna get built for.
That's a great
Yep.
idea.
Okay.
that was one of my comments.
And then everyone's, it makes it very clear. And it doesn't have to be, this is gonna be built all the time, but things will include blah, 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 blah,
You
blah.
want attachment B to discuss the billing arrangement?
No,
Not
the
financial
administrative-
so.
Well, I said in any
So those are
attachment A.
That's
financial.
financial services.
Oh, you want the
That's the
administrative?
annual contract for $8,000
Okay.
that we get.
Right.
Gabby, so people, the three of you who go to this meeting, do you go as observers of the town, as representatives of the select board, as advisors to Algiers Fire District?
I think it's like a liaison to another commission.
Because we don't get reports back to the select board. If there's, I don't know if there's nothing ever to read.
Well, I feel like it's like sort of like the Conservation Commission, so I don't necessarily report back every time.
No, I felt, I mean, the reason why I went was just to offer them support and respect, because they're really trying hard to solidify, and so I just went to show my faith in them. And Gabby and Peter both had other things to offer, but I was offering goodwill.
So I guess, Peter, if your presence is representing the town, as opposed to providing administrative services, you have to determine that at the meeting. And
Sure.
if you do that, adhere to, make note on your timesheet.
Sure. Absolutely.
And is your time, I mean, that was my next question, how are we tracking this? Is it, because right now Peter's time sheet just has hours without descriptions as to, what happens at what hour. So are we instituting it like a timesheet that describes what, are we just apportioning town and then fire district? Do we have a separate timesheet for fire district?
And there's a separate billing for the RERP grant as well, that he has to track his hours and spends on that, so. You have the RERP grant record, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would mean you might as well keep a task list like Katie did.
So the way that it has been happening, for example, with the RERP grant, is that on a specific timesheet in which I've done work on that, I make a specific line item on the bottom of my timesheet indicating that 3 hours are supposed to go to the RERP grant.
Right, but if we're giving them an invoice, I would expect that you say, here's what I did,
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm just making sure there's systems in place so that this is easy and
Yeah, absolutely.
you can make an
I'm not
invoice
questioning
without
what
any-
you're asking.
No,
I'm
no.
just-
I guess, if we're going to increase, I'm looking at my part 3, the payment, if it's likely to increase, either leave it out or it's gonna increase and there's gonna be amendment and something in writing, or it's not going to increase. But saying that, my opinion is I would strike that it's likely that the rate's likely to increase effective July 1.
I'm going to disagree with that, and the reason for that is that this is Peter's overtime rate now, and his overtime rate is likely, but not guaranteed to change on July 1st. So either we say at his current overtime rate,
Yeah, that's fine.
That's
I
what I
think
would
that's-
do.
Or
that leaves
which,
it open to
leaving the
change
dollar
annually.
amount out.
Right, because,
Yeah.
I mean,
I think-
likely doesn't add anything. If you don't change the contract, you're gonna need
Yeah,
to
it's
give them something
current
and change the
overtime, right.
contract.
Right, no, I think that's a good
So
suggestion.
that's simpler, thank
Yeah.
you.
No, that makes
But
sense.
that was my other concern in that document.
I was confused whether this is assignable or not, because in 5 it says assignment, and then somewhere else, it says 12 successors and assigns, and says nothing in this paragraph is intended to affect the limitation of assignment. So I wasn't sure whether this was an assignable contract or not. I would just make it consistent. I would suggest that nobody should be able to assign this.
Sure.
What does that mean, Gabby?
It means like you could subcontract it out.
Oh, okay, right.
Like,
No, I get it now.
So are you requesting that to be?
I'd
what
say
else?
strike 12. Isn't that what you were referring to?
Yeah,
Successors
either 5 or
and-
12. I mean, pick a.
Which one would you?
I would say that no one should be allowed to assign it. I don't want to be doing this for somebody else. You know.
So strike number 5, you're saying? I'm just
No.
asking for a question. Strike 12.
The town shall not assign is 5.
I don't think anybody should assign it, but then you should, in 12, make that consistent. Where it says, nothing in this paragraph is intended to affect the limitation on assignment.
Okay, so
Strike
strike
that.
12.
I don't think we need
Strike
to.
the last sentence of 12, not the whole thing, I think.
Yes, that's what I was writing.
Was there, why was, I mean, I just have a question about why work product ownership was put in here.
While we're on that, I don't understand the word contemplated. That's a strange use of the word contemplate. The work, shouldn't it be delivered to, or whatever? Contemplated comes in several places.
Sure. May I possibly make a suggestion? Would it be maybe a better use of time for all of you to submit edits to me and then to make those amendments?
I would just, I'll just give you the rest of my comments because I'm sort of was just prepared to do that. Oh, it said that this is not going to be done on work time?
That's
So we're
correct.
just gonna charge overtime consistently? Okay.
Because the select board previously determined that I have enough work during my
Right.
40 hours a week for the town.
Keep you busy, right.
To keep
I
me
remember
busy,
that
that-
conversation.
That is my first priority, and that the work for them would come as secondary to my responsibilities to the town.
Okay. And then we're just charging them a straight rate, like a pass-through. We're not, like, whatever is, that's the overtime rate. My other question is, and this might be clarified maybe in a different way, but like every time they wanted to request you to do something, it was gonna be another agreement. That's how I read it, which I thought was not efficient.
Okay.
So every time they've said, hey, I want you to do work, that was another agreement, is sort of how I read it, and I don't know if I'm,
Where did you read that?
oh, I don't know anymore.
Is that the way you interpreted it, Peter?
No, the intention with that was to ensure,
Do you know where it is?
I don't have it in front of me,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
To ensure clarity for what they want done, that any work request should be done in writing, and that it's not specifically an amendment to the contract, but it's similar to this, the attachment A would be.
You mean anything that's not an A or B that
That's correct, anything that's not an A or B.
would require a new?
Not require a new contract, but just a
written
Needs to be
understanding.
submitted in request.
Yes.
That's
In writing.
a good way to put it,
written
is submit
request.
it in writing.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's rewriting it.
So I would call that a change, okay, so I'm looking at changes in work. No payment for changed or additional work shall be made unless the changed or additional work has first been approved by writing, and all parties have agreed upon the appropriate adjustment. Any approved change or addition along with the payment adjustment, if any, will be effective upon an amendment to this contract executed by both parties.
You can just
Okay,
say.
so we can remove
So-
the amendment to this contract. Would that be satisfactory to you?
Maybe it could be added to the scope of work.
I mean, I think if there's an
Appendix
exhibit
B
B,
plus
we'll
additional
alleviate a lot of
tasks in
that and
writing.
say,
Sure.
or just set, you know, I mean, that's all it needs to be. I think the assumption is that when they give you a request, that it's, they've requested that it be done.
Yeah,
Right. That was the intention.
I think that's way
That's
too.
okay.
It's just
Not in-
Appendix B plus additional tasks have to,
Sure.
requests have to be submitted in writing. Anything else, Gabby?
Nope.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh,
Moving right along, do you want me to put notes into something?
No, it's okay, I'll just come back.
so,
to it.
Peter, as you say, anyone who has edits will send them to you by email.
Yes, please.
ASAP.
Yes, please.
Then it's going to Pat, or Pat View, and then it will go to, oh no,
Sure, if you wish,
I'll just
I will
write-
inquire with Pat View if she would be willing to
Yep.
consider it.
thank you.
If not, I will attempt to find a different attorney.
When is the next Algiers Fire District meeting?
Not until January.
Okay.
But thank you for putting the energy to getting this in a written document with an understanding. I think that's important.
I mean, this was
So
not
it's
intended
good.
to be a final document, it was expected
Yeah.
that you would have edits.
No, but I appreciate you doing this because this has been such a.
So I just wanted, at the request of Sheila, I just wanted to provide everyone with an update as far as current and potential grant opportunities for the town. And this specific spreadsheet was not in the folder because I put it together today. As has been shared with everyone, the CC4G planning grant has been fully executed, and because Penny is a part of that reimbursement process, we have to wait until she returns from her vacation to begin that. The second two columns are just to, so you all were aware of what the amounts would be for this. So that grant will be $30,000 reimbursable, and then the town, as part of the grant application, said that they would give $2,000 in kind services for that. So that's basically my
Time and energy you're putting.
Yes,
in.
correct.
Yep.
Can I
Next,
just make a suggestion that I think that if you're starting to split your time up between 3-4 different places, that it might make sense to do it by task. Like,
What do you,
like say 1 hour description, 2 hours, I mean, that's how I do my timesheet. And I'm just suggesting that
sure.
that be a better breakdown, because then you can just say, okay, here's what I did and here's my in-kind services.
Sure.
I mean, especially if you're starting to say, okay, each day I might do a
Right.
half hour here and a half hour there, it might be better to have a timesheet where you break out everything based on task.
No, it makes sense. In that sense, it might help for forecasts
That's what you asked for.
forward
That's what
as you
we
look
use a
at
lot
things,
too.
right?
I
Right.
mean, that's how I've used it in the past.
So you have
too.
an idea what it's gonna
How
cost
much is the
going in.
grant gonna actually cost us?
No, I think that
in
makes
future?
sense.
My other question is,
You're referring specifically to grant work.
to this particular grant, CC4G, which is
Oh,
Peter's
oh,
in kind, or
right, okay,
Ellie's in kind,
yeah.
or something, you know,
oh,
but Peter's
Well,
in
Ellie-
kind.
Ellie
yeah.
can't do it, right?
Ellie can't do it.
That's right.
So my other question with in kind is, how are we setting up your timesheet? Because my general recollection of the grant requirements is that you need to have a supervisor sign off, generally for people's times. So is that something we're gonna start instituting?
I don't know why you're looking at me. You.
Well, no, if that's the grant requirement, that's the grant requirement.
I mean,
don't
this is just
remember
my
the
past.
specifics of that grant.
Only because
versus
we
a
ran into
bazillion
getting
other-
in trouble with the state, but generally, the employee signs and dates it, and then there needs to be a supervisor
So
signature. and it needs to
it's
be
not on the RERP grant, but it could well be in the CC4G grant, so
I-
I think,
Look at the specific.
I will look
Yeah.
at specifics. I have read through the entire grant. I don't recall that, but I will look through it again to confirm Gabby's question.
Can I suggest that this be dated? I think this is a very
I
good
already, yeah.
Okay, so that, I would like to see this regularly.
Yes.
And that the date, there's a date on it. It's very good for us to
That's
be
very
aware
helpful.
of this, yeah.
Particularly with the success of these grants in the town. I think it's awesome to see.
Okay, I will get back to all of you about the specifics of that grant and the time tracking. As you all know, this fall, work on the Better Back Roads grant was begun. So all of the work for Stage Road has now been completed, and we actually have the invoices in the warrant tonight for that. So that grant, so the maximum reimbursable for the town is $34,407, and the town's share of that is 20%. And so
You mean in addition,
I-
on top of the maximum
That's
reimbursement,
correct,
we
yeah.
owe an additional, not the town share, but the town owes an additional 20% of
Yes,
that.
This is
town-
the town's share
the
of
town's share is-
acquiring
that's
that
correct.
money. So
Yes.
it cost us $8,600.
That's
to
correct.
Get a grant for 34.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And then Sweet Pond Road, due to a number of factors, as was previously discussed this fall, that we received an extension on the Sweet Pond Road portion of that. So the maximum reimbursable for that will be $20,000, and then in addition to that $20,000, this town will be responsible for $4,000.
Okay, great.
Can we just go back to Stage Road? I think what you found out from this is that we got a whole lot more, the town got a whole lot
Yes,
more
so-
reimbursed than we originally thought was going to happen, which
That-
is good.
Well, what happened is that when Katie was initially applying for the grant and looking at this, particularly for the Stage Road portion of the work, her initial estimates for that portion of the project were just over $80,000. And with the RFP that went out and as you'll see in the bills here, the town's total cost for this is going to be just over $42,000.
No. The total cost of the project is
The
going to be
total cost-
$42,000.
The total cost,
is
yes,
going to be
sorry.
$8,600.
You're correct. You're correct.
Okay,
I
great.
misspoke.
Moving on to grants and aid.
As
Oh, we did, yeah, we know
Yeah,
that.
so
Yeah.
previously this summer, we received a grants and aid grant for $20,900. Dan and the crew began some of that work on Carpenter Hill this fall, and due to other tasks they needed accomplishing, they completed the work on Carpenter Hill, but did not complete. There's a portion that's also going to be done on Bonneville Road, and we're not able to get to that. So that total maximum reimbursable will be $20,900, and then the town will be responsible for an additional $5,225. So it will be a maximum project cost of $26,125. So
Are all these cash contributions or in kind or?
so the grants in aid is a combination of cash and in kind. The Better Back Roads grants are both cash. The Wyndham Wood Heat is a potential grant, as I shared with the select board.
So can you just separate this into received and proposed?
Sure.
That's a good way to say it.
Or projected.
Or projected or something.
Proposed grant?
Yeah, it's a grant proposal.
Anticipated.
Is it anticipated or is it?
We-
Well, I guess it does.
Potential?
Yeah.
Whatever word you choose, it's
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
As
By
I-
proposed, I meant that there's a proposal
Sure.
going to be put in.
Yep, sure. As I presented to the select board a couple meetings ago, I believe, I have started working with Wyndham Regional Commission on the Wyndham Wood Heat Grant and reviewing that for consideration for the project here in the town office. So that is still available. It's temporarily on hold until some further, Wyndham Regional Commission is still waiting for some information from the architect and engineers in order to move forward on that, so it's just temporarily on hold. That grant in and of itself is 25% of the installation cost of a efficient wood heating system, or up to a maximum of $75,000. And if the project includes building envelope energy improvements, then an additional 10% or $25,000 will also be available. The town's share of this is variable depending on the makeup of our project and the overall expenses.
What's a building envelope?
The roof and siding.
Oh,
Is it possible to have a
you know-
range there instead of variable? If we have any idea?
Well,
It might be premature because we have no budget for the construction yet, or
are you looking for a dollar amount or a percentage amount, Gabby?
A dollar.
A dollar amount, we will not know that until things move along further with the architect and engineers and what they determine would be, particularly with the engineer, what he determines is necessary. And last but not least, begun work with Wyndham Regional Commission on the initial stages of applying for the Better Connections grant.
have you begun work, or have you just started to schedule a meeting? Because we don't even know what the grant might, we haven't even agreed what the grant would be for yet, right?
Well, the grant, based on my newest conversation this late afternoon with Wyndham Regional Commission, and based off of requests for the Algiers, based on the Algiers master plan and from a couple of the organizations.
There's no Algiers master plan. There is no Algiers master plan. There is a draft to be presented to a group of people, and then it will be presented to the board, but there is no Algiers Village master plan.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Yeah, I just don't want anybody to get...
But based on information from several organizations in Algiers Village, and information that has gone into that draft, and communications that Wyndham Regional has had with those organizations, that and also based on the work that I've already begun at the request of the select board in working with Vermont State Police and VTrans to figure out a solution for the excessive speed
Route 5, okay.
on
Yeah.
Route 5, that one of the options for this grant is to create a traffic calming system at that area of the road right there. And so one of the steps for this grant application would be gathering the data that is already in the process of being gathered through Vermont State Police.
What is the review of proposals and grants? Who is? I don't think. In other words, it doesn't come to the select board, and I'm not suggesting that it does. But who is? Is it the town administrator who's responsible for selecting the proposals to go after?
Well, Sheila and I had been in discussion about this specific grant.
Right, but I'm just saying, speaking in general.
So you find out about grants in many different
Yes, I know.
So we're always like sieving through as much information that we can get, or sometimes going out and looking for it. And depending on what projects are underway. This particular one came from Wyndham Regional Commission, and it's in the Better Connections Grant Program. It provides safe, multimodal, and resilient transportation systems that support the Vermont economy, support downtown and village economic development and revitalizations, and lead directly to project implementation. So,
I think it's great, but what is the process of? Is it you signing off on something? Because we could run into a situation where somebody is pursuing a proposal that's absolutely ridiculous. And so, what's the oversight on which proposals are we going to chase?
That's a good question.
Usually it's been, in my experience in the last 2 years, working with the town administrator, going both ways. And then if somebody else finds a grant, like if somebody from Wyndham Regional Council Commission comes in and has a grant, they'll send it to us. But we would talk about whether or not this is I think there've been a couple grant opportunities which we just said they don't fit our town's,
Right.
so sort of an ad hoc.
Okay, so it's
decision.
the select chairperson and the town administrator.
Pretty much.
Okay, I
Unless-
mean, that's fine
yeah.
by me,
If
as
you
long as
get-
there's a review.
Like Gabby
That's
sent
going
one
on.
a couple, you sent something a few months ago or a month or two ago.
That was
saying,
the grants and aid.
Yeah,
Well, I
So-
imagine that all of us could be looking
Oh, we can all
for
look.
possible.
Right, but there has to be a place where the review, where someone is saying, well, this is not, I mean, Peter might think that this grant is worth pursuing, and hypothetically, it's not.
Sure, of
It's
course.
not in the town's best interest to pursue that grant, so you're wasting a lot of time in pursuing the grant, doing research, and there should be some kind of oversight, that's all. And it doesn't have to be legal oversight, but we can't have a system in which everybody is going and writing grant proposals
Right.
without us knowing what's going on.
so you would know because it would be on Peter's priorities and projects list.
And
you know.
that you would have reviewed it with.
Yeah, and then people always have the chance to comment and ask questions about those lists, so.
So with this specific grant, with the Better Connections grant, Sheila and I already previously spoke about it. And then Wyndham Regional Commission specifically contacted me because they feel that the intersection at the new bridge in Algiers is a prime candidate for receipt of this grant. And from what I was told this afternoon, is that it has higher viability than a number of the other projects for this specific grant.
Great, I'm all for getting grants.
Yes, not questioning that.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of giving you further
Yeah,
explanation for
and
this
that makes a
specific
lot of
instance.
sense.
So, Peter, thank you for
Can I
doing,
ask one question, and maybe it was covered, but it wasn't in the past meeting minutes that I reviewed. What about grants for making the town office ADA accessible?
we've been through that, and I think we may have to, and I think we had to have done it, if I remember correctly, before the RFP was sent out.
Well,
Or it may
The
be-
RFP asked for the help of the architect, the selected architect and contractor
So
with the grant, with finding grants, or suggesting grants.
Yes, that did also, yeah.
So speaking with two different people, one of whom was Katie, so the ADA modification grants is, in order to be eligible for that, the majority of the project must be ADA modifications. The other thing is that that needs to be explicitly spelled out and separated out from all the rest of the project. And because of what was expressed as needed for this building, that ADA compliance was not the majority of it. And so that makes us ineligible for applying for an ADA modification grant.
And we couldn't have done those projects separately? I guess that's my question. I mean,
No, I'm not following
we
what
couldn't have
you.
pulled those projects out and do them separately as a project.
Oh.
I don't know the answer to this. That's why I'm
I don't
asking the
either.
question. And I was just wondering if, what the discussion, what the ending discussion was with why we chose not to apply for the grant. Really for my
This-
own information.
Yeah, no, that's.
I
don't
didn't know
recall
that,
the
I didn't have the
conversation specifically
awareness.
around that. I know we talked about something, because things rolled ahead with talking to an architect or something, there was something there, and I thought that's what that pertained back to, but if that's
Well, I
not the
think
case.
it bears.
And that's a
it's
question, I
good
think, as
question to
Richard
ask.
said, is to talk to
Yeah, talk
our
to the
architect
architect
about
and
it,
see
and
what-
see if there's an
Right,
opportunity.
well, when he was here, when we had a discussion
Right.
with him, he
He
said
that's
he said
part
he
of
was
their
going to
role.
be he could be very helpful in finding where the prospects are.
So there may still be an opportunity to do what you just described, Gabby, I don't know.
I don't know, it depends, if the RFP went out, it's too late for a CM. So I'd assume there'd have been, I just wanted to understand for my own self.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you for putting that together, and we certainly have some
Yeah,
refinements
that's a
Very
good,
helpful.
good document, yeah.
Thank you.
So I just, before we get into communications, which we're adding to the agenda, I just wanted to remind
I
people
thought that
that
had been.
Monday, the 25th is Christmas, a holiday, so our meeting will be at 6:30 on Wednesday, the 27th. Because I don't think we're going to see. And then the following meeting is not New Year's. Okay, so communications, Peter.
You don't want to do the warrant first?
I put it before finance, but we can put it
Oh,
after. Oh, you did, I'm sorry. Warrants. Did
Having
any?
a highway.
Right, I forgot to
Oh,
move
yeah,
highway
you-
down.
Yeah.
Highway, thank you,
Boy, we
Gabby.
have a lot to go.
So highway, I spoke with Dan this morning. Majority of their work the past few days, as everyone knows, has been plowing and sanding and salting. Aside from that, he said most of their work has been consumed with getting all of the equipment ready for winter. So they've been doing a lot of equipment repairs for the past 3 weeks.
Great, thank
So
you.
that was the extent of this update.
And we saw them out.
Warrants. Somebody, can we pull these warrants together? Gordon, do you want to do them again?
Gabby, did you look at them? I did not.
Yeah, I did.
So would you be comfortable running through? I don't know
You do
what
it
the
so
67. If I mean I can do
Flattery
it.
will
I
get
just
you
will have to.
I'm not sure because you wanted to pull something out and
I
I wasn't
have-
sure
yeah,
what that is.
So when you get to the expense warrant, 67,000,
That's the one.
the big one, yeah, I have, if you want me to, I'll just say that it should be contingent on getting this invoice clarified.
Oh, okay, the Little Rock invoice?
Yeah.
Okay. So make the motion to pay the following payroll and warrants. Payroll for the week ending December 3rd, 2017 in the amount of $6,223.14. Payroll for the week ending December 10th, 2017 in the amount of $6,471.78. Expense warrant 1811 in the amount of $67,601.17. Expense warrant 1813 in the amount of $21.50. And expense warrant 11FC in the amount of $2,100. For a grand total of payroll and warrants of $82,470.59 with the caveat that the LaRock bill be clarified
Yes,
to Sheila's satisfaction.
thank you.
Second.
If I may, before you move any further, I have a little bit of clarifying information for all of you regarding the LaRock bill and the MT3 bill. So what I'm passing out to you right now, so those two invoices are for the grants and aid, not the grants and aid, I apologize, for the Better Back Roads grant. And so this is for your understanding. In working with Dan, because this project was not initially budgeted for out of Dan's budget for this current fiscal year. He is wanting to take this out of the highway surplus, which is Fund 0010. And as you all have been requesting of recent, the current balance of this fund is $290,763.55. After these two invoices, which you'll see on the left-hand side, are paid for a total of $43,009.30. The balance will then drop to $247,727.25. However, we will be reimbursed, as we discussed earlier, for $34,407, and that will be returned to the highway surplus, so it will have a final total of $282,134. Hopefully it's not too confusing.
That's great.
That's very
exactly
helpful.
what we've asked
That's
for.
exactly.
The current balance is the current balance of the capital,
The highway exit.
highway surplus fund?
That's correct.
Okay,
Thank you, Peter, for the clarification there. It's very helpful.
moving right along.
The major invoices are for the work on the highways. So I think that's the only other thing to say. And then, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Miranda?
Richard,
Yeah,
you
I said aye.
Oh, sorry.
I guess I said aye quietly.
Communications, well, we sign.
Yes, please sign them all.
Yes.
I'm gonna give them to all together.
We have a few communications.
So we're signing here now. Yes.
The listers passed on a communication to me from the State Property Evaluation and Review Board, saying that all three of the equity measures for the current reappraisal all passed with satisfactory results, which is the highest result that they can get. So if any of you would like to look at that letter, it's just very brief saying that, anyhow.
Is there more in there or just?
And we also
That's the
have
next
received
signing.
the final audit from Mudgett, and this too was very positive. As has been noted in several select board meetings ago, there were 13 minor adjusting journal entries that were made, of which you all approved.
Good work.
There were no misstatements, there were no disagreements, there were no significant findings, and there were no difficulties or material weaknesses found
Fantastic.
in our audit.
Well done.
If you'd like to see the full audit, I have 4 copies here, as
No.
well as
You
their
thank
letters.
you.
You can have it over there with the others, right?
I'll take one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we just
Since you have 4
go
copies,
back
like
to the Board of Listers? I think they deserve a round of applause and much appreciation from the select board for the work that they did, because these are pretty important, pretty impressive achievements. So I want to say thank you to the listers.
Agreed.
Like we're hacking.
I know.
I got to do these separate, these are the payroll warrants, so.
Are we at the point where I could ask for adjournment?
I so move.
Second.
Yeah, hurrah.
Any discussion?
And it is 8:39.
Thank you, everybody. So nice to have
Thank you, Sheila, for
Well done.
navigating these troubled waters.
Did you vote on adjournment?
Yes. Did we vote on adjournment?
Yes.
Yes.
We did. We all said yes.
Okay.